Consider and take action to rescind or adjust the order of the court regarding the 15% cut in the department salaries. I put this agenda item on the schedule because I was invited by Commissioner Carter to visit his office with our lead auditor for the past 2 years, Todd Pruitt, and his brother Chris. Do you remember how many years Chris was our lead auditor? Was it a half a dozen?
Probably 8 years, 8 or 9 years, and then Todd had it the last 2 years.
We met with 2 of them, and among the items that came up was the way some funds have been set aside and have not been fully made available in the cash fund when it appears to be cash. And Commissioner Carter, since you called that meeting with the lead auditors, I think I'll let you lead from here on this issue.
I have an email that I received from Todd Pruitt.
We can't hear.
I'm talking to myself.
I just want to know where the email was from. You said we didn't hear you.
It's from Todd Pruitt, the lead accountant for the outside auditing firm of Pruitt, Brown and Hill that audited our books for the last 12 years or so.
I remind our guest that you are a guest of the court, and please don't speak unless you're called upon any more than you would in a court process hall or in a legislative body meeting.
If y'all want, I've got a few extras here if anybody would like one. I'll give y'all a minute to read it, but basically, this is an answer to the attached Gazette article behind it about the FEMA fund, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. And it's not from me, it's not my rendition of the monies. I will say that I was reluctant originally to vote to cut 15% from our county employees' paychecks for the last couple of months of the year, but we were told that it was all hands on deck and that we were out of money and that it was something that had to be done to make sure that the county made it to year end. It wasn't popular, it's still not popular, based on the testimony this morning. But based on what I know now about this FEMA money being a reimbursement and never having been protected money in the first place, I just don't understand why we're hoarding money or putting money aside for a rainy day when it's pouring down outside. We've got county employees that are going to have to let bills go for the next 2 months that have been told we don't have any money, and we've got $250,000 in this FEMA account that's not even protected. I mean, it's cash. Todd Pruitt said it is cash. It was cash when it was sent back from FEMA. It was a reimbursement of monies that were expended by Bowie County, and when we got it back, it was put in a special fund, and it should never have had anything done with it but been put back in the bank account, our Precinct 3 and Precinct 4 account, if that's where it came from at the time. I was not here. And all I want to say is that if we have money available, let's don't take it away from the employees of this county, like this lady here that has 4 months to go, that's given 19 years and is going to lose her retirement, her job mainly, and her retirement, when we've got monies that, and I will say this too, I have asked Mr. Pruitt to take a look at and tell me which other funds that we have that could be used as cash instead of being set aside for a rainy day. And I just want to know the whole, I'll call it truth about our books. I'm new here. 4 or 5 months I've been here, And I'm finding out things now that should have been disclosed years ago. I mean, instead of me having to research and find out that this FEMA money is nothing but cash that's usable, I don't know who took it upon themselves. I don't even know if there's a Commissioner's Court record that set aside a FEMA account. It may have been set aside originally to pay the money out to make sure you got reimbursed, but when you were reimbursed, good business practices tell you to put it back in the bank, do away with that account, and don't keep it. It's not necessary anymore. If we have another major catastrophe, we could always go back and do it again, but if it's cash, cash is cash. I mean, it's sitting in the bank, readily available. Let's take another look at this 15%. I think I was told that it was going to save a little over $200,000. Well, we've got $720,000. And you could use part of this FEMA money and give the employees of the county a break and not have to make people that have been here a long time lose their jobs. And let's use what we've got. We've only got a couple more months, and we've got another budget coming up, and if we do a good budget, we'll be okay next year. So let's take a look at what we can do here for these county employees that need the break.
I don't think everybody got a copy of this. You want to read it, or you want me to read it to them?
Is everyone read it, or would you like it read?
Read it.
I'll read it. This is sent to me on Tuesday, July 22nd, 2014 at 3:11 p.m. from Todd Pruitt. It says, "Hello, Mr. Carter. Thanks for sending this," and he's regarding this article that was in the Gazette. "This article is very inaccurate. I'll explain in full on Thursday." This was this past Thursday when he came up and visited with us. But here are the facts. The $721,720 in the FEMA fund is not restricted in any way and therefore cannot be presented in the special revenue fund under generally accepted accounting principles. It is not allowable. The proposed adjustment was made in order to comply with accounting standards and no other reason. This money is money that the county was reimbursed. That means the county had already spent the money and FEMA was reimbursing the county. There are no further outside restrictions on the funds. I find the article to be grossly misleading. It also shows a complete lack of understanding of the facts and of governmental accounting standards. Let's discuss on Thursday. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. I look forward to Thursday. Todd. The italics in the article are his. The bold is his. It's not mine. This is as the email came in. And I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. So I'm not going to argue with him. He was hired by the Commissioner's Court to oversee our books and make recommendations. I don't want to get into any character assassination, but he also told me that if the adjusting journal entries weren't done, that he was not going to represent Bowie County this year. So we'll be looking for another outside auditing firm after having done our books for 14 years. I don't know what the deal is there. I don't know the underlying problems we have getting the adjusting journal entries done, but that is his words verbatim.
Judge, may I say something?
Mr. Carter, it's for right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You mentioned Todd Pruitt and Chris Pruitt, and as far as I know, Chris was the partner on this job when I came to work here. And as far as I know, this money was sitting aside at that time in this special revenue fund. I'm not going to argue with the auditors and say it should or should not have been, but they let it sit there for over 8 years and did not make the adjustment at that point. Now, as far as the journal entries, either they don't send them to us or they told us in the past not to make the journal entries. They want to make those because when we make them, it affects the fund balance. And then they have to come in the next year and re-reconcile the fund balance. So they've asked us in the past not to make the adjustments.
Has he said to you to make them now?
If they send them to us, and we just got them about a month ago, that's for the last 2 years, and I had to ask for them twice.
Why would he say that he's not going to do our books again?
You'd have to ask him.
Is that money designated to certain precincts? where it was spent
The money
in
was
the original?
probably, the expenses were probably incurred in precinct 3 and precinct 1 due to some flood damage in the hurricane back in the 90s. So,
We had the ice storm, the tornado,
Right.
and the flood.
So-
So there should be FEMA money for all three of those.
and most likely what
Precinct
happened, the
three.
expenses were incurred, then the money came in and the money was set aside. Like, as I said, that money was there when I came to work here. And if the auditors had a problem with it 2 years ago, why didn't they mention that 8 years ago?
Have you known that it was usable cash, that it would just sit there in the account?
I have no, I did not. I assumed it was a restricted account. They never said, why don't you pull this out and use it?
Well, am I correct? Is it usable cash? Have you checked?
That's up to the court to decide. If it's
Well,
sitting in a
it's-
straight revenue fund,
According to them, it can't be put in a state revenue fund.
that's what they're saying, but I still think it's up to the court to decide how it gets used.
Well, do you
I'm
have a
not,
record?
I
of-
can't make that
Do we
decision.
have a record of the court setting this fund up?
I don't know, I have to go back and look.
Because
Because,
if it's never even legally set up, it's not even there.
I
So,
don't know that.
but you can go back and look.
If there's a court record, yes, there should be something. I
Well,
don't know.
we have, this is the cash, combined cash statement as of Friday. And according to Friday, we had $1,290,000 in the bank. We had 720 in that FEMA fund. That would give us $2 million as of Friday. And today I see that we're over $2 million in the operating. That would be $2.7 million in the operating.
No, it's over 2 million in operating? I think it's 1.3 million, is that not?
It was $1.3 million, yes. But
Okay.
you add the FEMA to it, it's $2 million.
Sure.
And then you add the loan, that's 4.9 million that we've got in actual cash in the bank right now. And we're gonna pay the bills today. That's gonna pull us down probably, what,
When we pay the
750,000?
bills today, and then we have payroll coming up the 31st.
Right.
That's gonna pull us down to about 400,000.
Right.
And then you're saying 720.
Right, and then and that's covered easily by the 2 million without even touching the loan proceeds. I just don't see why we're protecting money, why we don't use it as part of our overall cash scheme. You know, in business, you use everything you have at your disposal to make it through the year. And, you know, we have a new year coming up. We'll worry about that one also. It'd be nice to carry some over, but let's don't put money aside if we have it available and make our employees, our county employees, suffer when it's not necessary. These monies, if it were restricted, I could understand.
What are
I
you
know
gonna do
we-
when that's spent, Mike?
Pardon me?
What you gonna do when that's spent?
Well, like I say, we just have to budget better next year. But it, you know, this lady sitting right here, 4 months to go, and she's getting put out of a job. When we're saving $720,000, putting it back to save $200,000 worth of payroll, you'd still have a $500,000 net if you wanted to designate this as a FEMA account. I'm just saying, put all the money in the bank and use what's at your disposal to manage your county. I just, you know, if you look at this cash statement here, at the bottom line on the second sheet, there's actually over $4 million in the operating fund. And
A lot
all
of
of
it's
these,
restricted money.
well, if you look at what's just called operating fund, there's a lot of accounts there, it's just called operating, and it's not called restricted. That there may be some of those that's available to
A
you.
lot of it is Jack Pappas' money, the state money that we have to keep there because
Well,
we
I
pay the
know, and
bills.
they're labeled restricted.
No, they're not.
They're not.
Well-
It's labeled operating.
Well, like I say, after this FEMA deal, I want to dig a little bit deeper and find out what is what on this, because there's a lot of accounts on there that has money in them that I want to make sure that they are designated for something, or are legally restricted. I don't want to go into a spend thrift here unless they spend what we've got, but let's don't make people suffer when we've got the money and don't have to.
Commissioner Blackburn, is it your concern that we're using up?
I think it's money that should go back to the precincts that it was spending precinct 1, precinct 3. I don't know about precinct 4 or not.
Well, was this money originally set up?
And I'm concerned that
It was set up
it's under
on-
guidelines by FEMA
And
still.
I
That
don't
would
have
need to
the
be
authority
checked
to
into.
move the money.
What you have in front of you says it's not.
I don't think that's clarified enough.
Our outside auditing firm is not clarified enough to tell us.
Not
it's
on the FEMA, not on the FEMA.
It's not FEMA, it was a reimbursement. I mean, this is money we spent, it's like, it's like this text dot grant that Tom and I are doing right now. You've got to spend the money up front, and then the state gives you your money back. That's the way this FEMA was. You spend the money first, and then the federal government gives you your money back. This was never restricted monies. There may have been an account set up to keep track of what we were spending for reimbursement, but when this money was reimbursed to us, there was no special attachments to it. It was cash. It should have been deposited in cash. It should have been deposited in the operating account. It should have never, according to the email that I passed out, you cannot designate it as a restricted fund. It's cash. Now, the Commissioners Court can, if you want to, vote this morning to put $720,000 in a fund and call it a FEMA account. But it's still a part of the operating fund. It's not restricted. It's designated. And I think the Financial Advisory Committee has been using that term lately as a restricted / designated. And if this money is legally designated, then all we've got to do this morning is vote to undesignate it. It's our decision to do what we want to do with our monies available. Do you want to put this lady out of a job with 4 months to go till retirement over $200,000 when we've got $725,000 in a account called FEMA account that's not a FEMA account? It's just cash. I don't want to do it. When we get down to the vote on this, if there is a vote on it, I promise you, I don't think I can sleep at night knowing that I'm going to put her out of a job with 4 months to go with kids to take care of. When we got money, now if it was a have to, and we were broke and didn't have the money to make the end of the year, sure, you do what you have to do to run the county or to run business, whichever it is. But if it's not entirely necessary, if you've got skills, management skills, or management ability, or management tools, let's take care of the people.
I looked and underlined the sentence after he had described the way it came to us, what it's for. There are no further outside restrictions on funds. This money is cash in the bank, and it was the day it was received. But I thought what you were getting at was that we might be shorting ourselves when we didn't have enough money to make it to the end of September 30th if we adopted this 15% cut.
Say that again?
Yes, I thought you were concerned that we wouldn't have enough money to make it through September 30th and pay all of our bills if we did not.
I'm saying we need to make the cuts and stay with what we originally stated. Wow.
We were talking about what?
The 15% reduction.
That figure's pretty accurate. We thought we were cutting for 5 pay periods, $535,000 was what we thought would be. No, $235,000 in 5 pay periods.
Best of my knowledge, they would be.
I think I wrote that down from my last meeting. And, but we're only doing this for 4 pay periods, so we're talking about $188,000. Although I voted against the $5 million loan, the $5 million loan was so that we could meet our budget to the end of September. Because we borrowed the money to pay our employees this $188,000. And now we're not going to use it to keep our employees paid where it was.
We've already used 2 million of it or 3 million, which is
2 million.
2 million of it already.
And that's why I was asking, is it your concern that even with the loan, we may not have enough money to make it to pay all of our bills by the end of September 30th?
I want to be sure we can pay our bills and the salaries of what people we have got, and I do hate that lady's being sent home. I had one retired that had 25 years in the county. I had one with 10 that left, and I had one with 6. I hate it for all of those people. I just feel like it's steps we have to make to correct the problems we've had. Whether it's your fault, in the past fault, or the commissioners here on the court's fault, we have to go correct it. And I feel like it's with this cut.
You do realize we borrowed the $188,000 so that we could pay our employees to the end of September in the $5 million, don't you?
Say that again.
You do realize.
I realize we borrowed $5 million.
We borrowed $5 million, and that included the $188,000 we're cutting in their salaries. It's in the $5 million.
Okay.
The $188,000 is in the $5 million. We borrowed it so we could meet their payroll. Let's do it. Whether we should have borrowed the money or not, we did borrow it, we have it in hand. Even if we didn't find the $721,000.
I don't think you found anything. It's been there all along, and it's designated to precinct 1 and precinct 3.
Then forget the $720,000. Let's stick with the fact that you borrowed $5 million. You actually needed 4.6. You borrowed an extra $400,000, and that 4.6 was included this $188,000 for these employee salaries. You borrowed the money, got it in hand, and then cut $188,000 out of their salaries. We already had the money in hand, we borrowed it. Let's pay them.
Call for a vote.
I make the motion that we rescind the 15% pay cut.
Say that again. Couldn't hear you.
I said I make the motion that we rescind the 15% pay cut that we voted to do last month.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Carter to rescind
We cannot hear.
15%.
He's repeating what I said. He's writing it down, repeating what I said.
Talk to myself. Yes, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Carter to rescind the 15% pay cut. Chair has a motion, do we have a second? Chair will second the motion. Motion by Commissioner Carter, second by Judge Lacey.
I don't think, I didn't add the FEMA money into my motion because it shouldn't have to be, because according to our outside auditing firm, who the Commissioners Court hires to make sure our books are current, are right, and we're getting an up-to-date look at our county finances. These people, there's probably 50 people that work for this firm. They're all CPAs. They're all extremely knowledgeable of the laws, of the rules, of basic rules of accounting. And like I say, we spoke for 3 hours, and I now know why we were $3.4 million in debt. That's another story for another time, but I understand now what happened with that $3.4 million. I'm not going to get into that today. Right now, I'm dealing with this so-called FEMA money that's nothing but cash that needs to be called cash and moved on the, you're talking about the paperwork shuffle. This is another paperwork shuffle. They got 720 down here and $1.3 million up here. It all should go up here. And it should be $2 million in this, where it says FEMA account needs to go away. And if it was precinct 1, precinct 3's money, in the new budget year, it should be restated or refunded to precincts that used it originally. That's where it should have been gone in originally instead of put in a special account. So I'm not dealing with the 720 right now because I shouldn't have to, because it's nothing but cash.
Commissioner, I'm not going to argue with the CPA firm's credentials, but I will go back and say that money sat there for 8 years in that fund, and they never wanted to move at that point. And I understand his email, but they had every opportunity at that time to move that money in and never did.
and now they're recommending that it's cash. So
They could have recommended it 10 years ago, and they didn't.
Didn't.
I'll ask him
They are
that,
now.
I'll ask him that question.
That's a good question.
I was not removed years ago.
My understanding was since it was precinct 3 and precinct 1's refund money per se, that the money was restricted for our two accounts.
Well,
That's how it was set up
That's not the
originally.
way it works.
one way of looking at it, Commissioner Stone, is the taxpayers were taxed for that expense caused by weather conditions. But when the money came in from FEMA to help us with that expense, we already had the expense, the taxpayers had already been taxed for it, we already spent it, all right. They got no tax relief. They paid for it, and they got reimbursed, except they didn't get reimbursed. The slush fund got reimbursed.
If you're looking at right for right, when that money came in, it should be immediately distributed to precinct 3 and precinct 1, period.
And given relief on your next budget, because you have this income come in.
True.
It's not income. It's already been recognized as income. It's just money that's there. If you don't make the cuts, then you're not reducing expenses. And I think that's what the Commissioners Court originally voted to do, was reduce expenses. This is not income. This is just money that's there. It's not gonna go on the income side.
Did we or did we not borrow enough money to finish the budget year and pay our employees their
That's
full
yet
salary?
to be remain to be seen. I don't know. I don't know how much more we'll spend.
Didn't we borrow, didn't you show that we needed to borrow 4.6 million to get through the end of September?
That's correct, yes.
And we borrowed 5 million.
Correct.
And about 100,000, that's gonna be the expense of getting the loan and all. So we're at 4.9.
And of that, we've got 4.9 million left if you add in the cash that we have in the bank, it's used before today's payment.
The main thing is, the money was borrowed to pay our employees for the end of the year, this budget year. And then after we borrowed the money, got it in hand, then we said, we're gonna cut your salaries 15%, and we had the money in hand.
That's what the Commissioners Court voted to do. I mean, I'm not gonna argue with that.
And we have an opportunity to reverse that.
I call for the vote.
Amen.
Call.
I would like to weigh in on this, Jeff.
Yes, and Commissioner Blackburn, let me respond to that.
Mhm.
This is why Robert's Rules of Order do not work in a Texas Commissioners Court session.
What?
Under
I don't
Robert's
know
Rules,
what rules we're going by sometimes.
you called the question, and that's
Yeah.
part of Robert's Rules of
Yeah.
Order. Robert's Rules of Order would allow the majority voter voting here, 3 out of 5, at any time to shut off discussion on any issue by calling the question, okay? And that goes against the open meetings laws in Texas. In other words, this is where the discussion is supposed to take place for the public to hear.
I don't have any problem with that. I just feel like it's been discussed and I'm ready for a vote.
But the reason I didn't take that step because you called for the question, that is the reason why.
Mhm.
And now, Commissioner Weaver would like to say
Go
something.
ahead.
Is it okay for me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Update number 2 from our advisory committee says substantial reductions in expenses should begin immediately. Update 3 says, from the same committee goes on to say, implement immediate spending cuts, stop the bleeding, and reduce spending by $16,500 a day to mitigate the projected loss as calculated. Judge, are you aware our fund balance will more than likely, correct me if I'm wrong, could go negative in around 6 weeks? You aware of that?
It's already negative, that's why we borrowed $5 million.
Does this just spend more money from another fund and not stop the leak or the bleeding without a plan to do something about the spending? Do you have a plan to replenish the I'm gonna back off of restricted, we've been told it wasn't restricted. But do you have a plan to replenish this fund? 'Cause I sure hope we don't have another catastrophe in our county to replenish it that way, because we can't afford it. Do you honestly think removing $500,000 from an already tight budget, from a rollback election, would not have ramifications to our employees. The citizens were advised of this prior to the election, and the taxpayers sent us a mandate to stop the spending.
I'd like to say something else. Excuse me,
Yes, I've
Sam.
got something, Jeff, here. The same auditing company that sent Mike this note here has also told us, standing right over there, to start cutting expenses in this county. So we've got twofold here. We got one talking against the other. Cut the expenses is what they told us, standing at that podium. Do we listen to them or do we don't?
Remember when they said that?
I do.
Yeah, maybe we don't have time easier.
What did you do after that?
Pardon?
We borrowed enough money to pay our employees, and then you act when you said that.
Did we cut expenses? No, we borrowed $5 million. This $5 million has got to come off the top come January. What are we gonna do with that?
No, it doesn't. It's separate taxes on the IRS side, so it'll be.
It still gotta be repaid. It's money that's gotta come out of our
Yes, it's
expenses.
coming out of their pockets where it's coming from. It'll come out of their pocket on the INS side, and then whatever we do on the maintenance and operating side, we'll take a look at that and see if there's another tax increase coming up. But that'll be determined when the budget is finished. We'll see where we're at there. But all I can say that is I want to know, I've only been here for 4 months. And if I had been on the council in 2012, I would be a little bit aggravated now that I was just finding out that we have money here that's really not protected, that could have been used, or according to Mr. Witten's email here, that was used in 2012 to cover up negative general fund balances. So if it was used, how did it miraculously get back in there again? I just want to know what we have to work with. How can we set a budget if we don't know what's available to work with? You can't run a business or a county, either one, without knowing what you have in the bank, what's restricted, what's not restricted, what's usable. If you're going to be able to pay your employees all the way through the end of the year, I just want to know what we have and if it's usable. Let's just disclose it all and call it what it is. It's cash.
Judge, I think the question's been called for.
A little more discussion.
Oh, fine now.
When we first voted on this, we had considered all the ramifications that couldn't cut the elected officials' salaries and possibly allowances. We'll discuss that in a little while. In the middle of the budget year, once it's set. I don't think we thought through all the unintended consequences like this. This lady here, we gave them permission to not just cut the employees 15%, they gave them permission to reduce their payroll by 15%. And that allow them to pick an employee that's going to get 100% cut, while nobody else gets 1% cut. Another unintended consequence, I have a letter from Sheriff Prince dated July the 25th, Boone County Commissioners Court. Due to a lack of funds and cutbacks on payroll, I'm being forced to stop courthouse security at the front door of the courthouse. Yes. Did you hear me?
We cannot hear you at all.
If you need me
This
to,
is
I'll-
from Boone County Sheriff James Prince. This is a letter he wrote dated July 25th, 2014, to Boone County Commissioners Court. Due to a lack of funds and cutbacks on payroll, I am being forced to stop courthouse security at the front door of the courthouse. I do request permission to move the courthouse camera monitors from the front desk at the courthouse to the sheriff's office in the rear of the courthouse. Guardian Security, the company who installed the cameras, gave a quote of $3,000, a little more, a little less, to move this equipment. In addition, I request permission for one non-sworn security
Now,
position.
you on another agenda item, Judge?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, it is.
Oh, you on
Number 4.
number 4?
Point of order. Question's been called, Judge.
We don't operate under Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, we do.
No.
What rules do we operate under?
The rules of the state of Texas,
Whichever rules y'all want to have.
Commissioners Court.
No, y'all not going in the road.
In addition, I request permission for one non-sworn security position to monitor the cameras be paid out of the courthouse security fund. This person, Tracy Jones, is already employed with the sheriff's office. There is currently $45,792.29 in the courthouse security fund, which is enough to pay the salary and benefits, which total $37,860 for the person monitoring the cameras, and the cost, approximately $3,000 to move the monitors, signed James Prince. This is a part of what we're deciding in the cutting the employees' salaries 15% and allowing the departments to eliminate positions rather than cut salaries 15%, so that their total payroll gets cut 15%. But these are consequences I don't think we intended or had in mind or even thought ahead about at all when we originally passed this. And so-
We have 10 departments so far that have agreed with the situation we're in, knowing that next year we're going to have problems financially. 10 departments have already laid people off. That 10 departments has annual gross wages of $487,000. That's 1/4 of where the advisory committee says we need to be starting next year. We need to relieve $2 million from our expenditures. And how are we going to do that? Transferring this money is going to help today. It'll be a Band-Aid, yes. But what are we going to do next year? We have got to get this under control, or we're not going to be here to operate.
Let's start with the cut. First of all, it turns out that it's necessary.
Oh, it's necessary now.
I've seen the totals for next year. You haven't seen them, Mr. Stone. I was here working on them late last night. And there are cuts in there. And so far, there are no cuts in the salaries for next year. And yet we're cutting expenses. But right now, we're dealing with the last 2 months of this year. We're dealing with money that we borrow to pay them. And we have it in hand. And now we say we're not going to pay them. And it's had unintended consequences. And I don't know what the judges are going to do upstairs, where they used to have security outside their courtroom. In fact, I think at one point we moved an x-ray machine, x-raying purses and briefcases and things that was in front of the courtrooms to downstairs. And I would appeal to you to vote yes on this. Any further comments before we vote? We have a motion on the floor to rescind the 15% cut in department salaries. I'll poll the commissioners. Commissioner Stone, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner Stone votes no. Commissioner Carter votes yes. Judge Lacey votes yes. Commissioner Whitt?
No.
And Commissioner Blackburn?
No.
Motion fails, 2 to 3.